You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Good day and welcome to the Mushie Moment with myself and my awesome co-host, Rev Cindy. We're live today on January 28, 2025, and I can't believe I did that backwards. We're on
show number 99. You should almost have it down pat by now.
Well, you would think I would. I actually, it was because we talked about it being reversed, I guess. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
If I look
Good
way
morning,
over there, am I looking at you?
Well, you look this way. Hi.
Oh, how's your day going? We've got a bit of sun here today. It's blue sky.
Show off. Here we have white sky and white things falling from that white sky, covering the roads and the cars.
Nice.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty. It's pure.
It's cold.
It's cold. Well, it's only about 0 degrees here, so it's actually not that cold.
Oh, that's not bad.
No.
That's not bad.
How's your day?
I think good. It's
Excellent.
sunny. It's been a day of lots of flow, lots of chatting with some friends, trying to get things going.
All the good stuff.
All the good things.
All the good things. Yeah.
Small
Yeah.
little steps of healing, go, go, go. Healing, go, go, go.
Rah, rah, sisboomba. My grandchildren are cheerleaders, so we can get them in on that. If make up a cheer.
Oh,
for it.
we got to get them to make up a healing cheer for people that are trying to heal. A medicine cheer.
Ooh.
Hey, our guest today.
Yes.
I hear your guest that our guest today is from your end of the world.
He is. Yeah. This guest to me is almost a full circle guest, if you would. A number of years ago, just as COVID and lockdown, like just before all that crap happened, the Nova Scotia Psychedelic Society, I think then it was known as the Halifax Psychedelic Society, brought in the movie Dose, which you and I have talked about many, 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 many times. We know and love Mark and Gareth and Patrick and a lot of people that are involved with the documentary. And my first sighting of the documentary was here in Nova Scotia when the society brought it in. And I bought tickets and I went with a number of friends. We thought we were going to learn about dosing with magic mushrooms, which we learned quite a bit about. And this was my first view of iboga. So it sparked something in me that said I need to go that way. And I went that way. And that way led me to Gareth Moxie. That way led me to watching another documentary and meeting you. It led me to, other medicines such as 5-MeO, Combo, Hape. There's a lot of them. And, the pathway has led me to go back to school and study facilitation with 5-MeO Bufo. And, I've now graduated that and I'm now a facilitator. So from the very, very extremely broken lady that walked in and first had a view of the Nova Scotia Psychedelic Society. And I watched this movie and I'm like, holy fuck, that's my healing. And now I'm here. And now, and now I get to interview one of the co-founders of the Nova Scotia Psychedelic Society, who was integral in bringing that movie in that I went and watched and changed my freaking life.
And
How's that for a
pretty
story?
damn awesome. And it goes all the way around. Yeah, that's pretty. It's pretty funny because actually through that we met through the medicines and the healing. This podcast came about.
It did.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the one, the only, the incredible Justin Andrews from the Nova Scotia Psychedelic Society. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hello, Justin.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm getting a little teary-eyed hearing you.
Yeah.
When are they going to let me in? Are you going to see the tears?
Yeah, well, like, I mean, very, very heartfelt, very real. You know, I realize I can go back further and say mushrooms led me to that and whatnot, but that movie, that dosed movie, whenever I get interviewed and people ask me what was the integral turning point for you, it was honestly seeing that movie, and it was hearing the call of Iboga and knowing that was my path. Yeah.
And here we are.
And here we are having a chat live on air. It's great.
That was a magical day.
Wow.
For us too, like the people that we met, we weren't officially a registered nonprofit yet. We were an informal collective, and we met another one of our founding board members at that event at the end during the mingle time, and it really led to the momentum that led to the organization getting official. So it was really this like coalescing. I wonder what was happening in the stars on that day, if we were to look back, but that was a really special day. Yeah,
it was an incredible day. So I really want to know, like, I want to hear, what brought you to that day, because I know that, coming into psychedelics, what brought you into psychedelics, what made you decide that Nova Scotia needed this society, which of course we so did and we so do. But for a couple of young guys, you and your co-founder, to come up with this idea and to bring it to fruition is quite amazing.
Yeah, so it really started with me and TR, the co-founder, in our early 20s doing a bunch of mushrooms. I started smoking weed really young. I was 11, so all through my teenage years, I was deep into it. And then mushrooms, as we said, they were just the next thing to do. We're like, let's try. I had no spiritual context, but it totally blew me out of the water. I think I ate a little over 4 grams for my first mushroom trip, and I just went deep. And I had, a bit of a spiritual awakening, and then we just kept doing them. We kept doing them. And for a while it was all good. But then it started getting really isolating, because we were having these realizations, and the language we started using, people started calling us like hippie or, whatever the words we use. And I realized that it wasn't safe to talk about. And the psychedelics weren't like mainstream yet. This was probably 2013. Was when I first did mushrooms. So 2013, 2014, MAPS I think was active, but it wasn't this big thing. Research wasn't happening at like major universities all around the world. It was still the early days of what they're calling, the psychedelic renaissance. So things got dark. I had a couple difficult mushroom trips. But even though we had some difficult times, we kept doing them. And then for a while, the only people that I really could connect with were people that really understood, and then had gone through these journeys. And this was in Ontario. I was in school in Kingston. And then TR and I moved back to Nova Scotia together. And I ended up just being on Arrowhead. Props, shout out to Arrowhead for all that you do. Love that website. Been visiting since I was quite young, reading the stories. And I stumbled across their event calendar. And this was 2016. I saw that there was the Horizon Psychedelic Conference in New York. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I didn't even know about MAPS yet. I had no idea that psychedelic research was happening. And I was just like this young dude, doing his thing with mushrooms. And so I flew down to New York. I bought a ticket on the spot. I flew down, and I ended up meeting a bunch of the people. I actually smoked hash with Rick Doblin. It was like this super cool moment, just like deep immersion in. And then I went to Psychedelic Science 2017 in Oakland, California, and then back to Horizons again in 2017. And then when I came home from Horizons the second time, we got together with TR, and I said, we need to start the Halifax Psychedelic Society. Because I had met people that run the Boston Psychedelic Society, New York, Montreal, and then I can't remember if it was in California or New York, but a few of us got together that were running or wanted to start psychedelic societies. And we had a little think tank, and we all sat down and we talked about, do we want to start some sort of national or international organization? And I think there is now the Global Psychedelic Network that ended up coming a couple years later. But in these early days, it was like, do we want to do that? But we realized that there's so many regional differences across Canada, across North America. You look at Europe, there's just so many differences in the way health regulations are regulated, different relationships to medicines. So we saw a lot of value in these independent organizations. So I flew back to Halifax and I said, TR, we got to start the Halifax Psychedelic Society. And he just said, okay. And so we started poking around. I started asking, who knows nonprofit law? And we met somebody who made like a slide deck of breaking down all the things you need to know about starting a nonprofit in the Atlantic provinces. We booked a meeting with him, and we just, downloaded the Nova Scotia Nonprofit Societies Act and started going through the bylaws. Like, what does it take? And TR and I had this great flow together, and we just said, it's time to get practical. We want more people like that went through what we went through of being lost and isolated. And so we just said, let's do it. Yeah. But a lot of just, I'll just wrap up that saying, we took a lot of inspiration from what was happening elsewhere and just saw the gap, right? And there were models existing. A guy named Kwasi from the Brooklyn Psychedelic Society really just like supported me along the way as well. So a lot of support from the movement. And then we said, you know what, it's time for Nova Scotia to, get on the map too and get out of the dark. Absolutely.
I 100% agree with that. As somebody who's, been treading her way through, I think it's a beautiful job what you guys have done. Both of the Dose movies coming in, and there was another movie that was highlighted here about a year or so ago. I didn't make it to that one. There was a bad storm going on. But I've been to the last two meetings, and TR, your co-founder, has been running really wonderful meetings. It's been nice to hear some of the stories. I walked into the one last week. He was in the middle of telling one of his stories of his journeys. And, it was really cool to sit and listen to a lot of the stories. So I commend you both for being, having that vision and seeing that and bringing it together. And it's nice to see that coming across Canada with the second, psychedelic renaissance that's happening now these days. I think it's nice to see the societies coming together, and we need more and more of that, because as people go and take some of these medicines and come back, it really is community that understands, that helps support you through your integration. So it's a very important thing that's been started, I truly believe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Steve is
cool story. That's a really cool story.
Yeah. Have you ever considered going out to the conference that's in Vancouver?
I would love to. It's just expensive to travel. I've been to quite a few conferences now. I went to one in Prague a couple of years ago, Beyond Psychedelics. That was really cool. There was one in Kingston, Ontario a couple of years ago. And what I find at the conferences has been a increasing shift towards like the corporate presence. The last conference I went to, there was like, sometimes at conferences, there's like the pass for 3 days, and then there's like optional extra workshops. There was a whole extra workshop on like investing in psychedelic companies and like how to screen which stocks you want to pick, and then a whole panel discussion on that. And it's just seeing the way that the movement goes. I understand that there are things that we need to do to get things actually legalized and pushed through the system, but I just got a little tired of it. And I find that if you go to the conferences every year, the content, like research, happens really slowly, so I'm kind of like, I'm going to take a break for a couple years and then go to a conference again when there might actually be some updates. I think if folks haven't been to conferences before, it's a really awesome opportunity. Especially like getting to know people over lunch, the mingling, hearing everybody come in. It's amazing. But yeah, I did the conference tour for about 4 years, 4.5 years. And just taking a little break.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
Wow. And yes, the corporatization, you can see it coming in. You can see people going, oh, there's money and investment opportunity. Let's jump all over it. But I've been sharing that. I'd say probably about 5 years now. I've been sharing to people that, that are scared of where it is. And for at least 5 years, they've been saying, within the next 5 years, this is going to be an $8 billion industry.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, well, it isn't going to get stomped when they see that much money. What's going to happen is they're going to find their way of controlling it like they did cannabis. Exactly. Cannabis isn't so much there in the medical end of things, but, the cash flow goes where it needs to go in the in the corporate world.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's it's something that's destined to happen, can't do anything about, but at least there's a bunch of people that are focused on the medicine and the healing and not the corporate end of it.
Yeah. Well, and I really like to look at it from a yes and. I see often there's this narrative of it has to be, medicalized, or it needs to stay in more, spiritual context, or even just in the hands of the community. But I do see a value in research. You learn a lot. And there's something to be said about standardized dosages and standard operating procedures and protocols. Like, we learn a lot from that. My concern would just be not repeating the failures that we learned through cannabis, right? You medically legalize something and create a medical program. Cannabis, before it became recreational legalized, there was a medical program for many, many years, and still a lot of people went to jail that didn't fit in that. And now it's just, you can go and just buy it and it's taxed, So I don't want to see that happen. So I want to see both streams be able to coexist and not have to medically legalize and then have the recreational, I hate that word, but to have that catch up. It would just be nice if they could happen at the same time. Here's this medical pathway, but at the same time, we're just going to also decriminalize and just like get the criminal justice system out of the way, like, especially when it comes to plant medicines, like, just
yeah, I completely agree.
Wow, well said.
Wow. So you are no longer in Nova Scotia. You are living out in Quebec now.
Yes.
What is and I don't know exactly how long you've been there. I know that it's not been like a really long time, but I mean, have you discovered like a psychedelic society out there that you are part of or might join as time goes on? Like, yeah. I know the psychedelic scene out in BC. I know a little bit in Ontario and a little bit around the Maritimes, but I don't know about Quebec. And Quebec has been their laws around cannabis are kind of closed off as compared to the rest of the country.
Yeah.
So I was curious.
Yeah, it's funny the way the world works and the synchronicities weave together. So I moved to Montreal just over a year ago. And within, I think, like 2 months of being here, I downloaded this app. I forget what it was called, but it was like for making friends. It was less about a dating app and more of like making connections. And I met a friend who is involved in like cannabis and psychedelic research with the David Nutt Foundation, but is living in Canada. And then they were in touch with a few of the former founders of the Montreal Psychedelic Society. And they revived the Montreal Psychedelic Society. So NPS is back up and running. And I went to a few of their meetings, and they asked if I wanted to, formally join the board. And I'm doing my master's degree right now. So it's like, ask me again in like 2 years, just being a little bit more informally involved. I put in 8 years with the Nova Scotia Society. So getting into the actual nitty gritty details, I was like, nah. Like I need a bit of a break, but there is an active kind of revival taking place in Montreal. And the team is really, there's one of their big things is helping get more material translated into French, because so much of the psychedelic research happening in America and in the UK and then the rest of Canada is just really English dominated. And some stuff gets translated, but not, there's still missing pieces. So, but they often host events that are bilingual to accommodate the wider community. But yeah, there's an active resurgence happening here in Montreal, and then as well as the Substrat event where I met Chad, who introduced me to you. So it's like I couldn't get away. I moved. I was like, it was a big deal. I was like moving away from Nova Scotia. I was stepping off the board of Nova Scotia Psychedelic Society. That was a big emotional time. We recruited, I think four of us stepped off the board at the same time, and we recruited 5 new people. And, that was a big moment of saying, okay, like I'm going to pass this torch. But then within like 2 months, it's just like boom, so like once the mushrooms have kind of taken the reign, there's no getting away. Like I like to say I work for the mushroom. I signed away my my life to the mushroom many years ago.
What are you getting your master's in?
I'm doing my master's in management in innovation and entrepreneurship. So it's a business program specifically designed for people that want to start stuff. It's more for builders. Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
So what steered you there?
Yeah. So I have a degree in sustainability and social anthropology, where I largely studied food systems and also like drug policy. Food and drugs are my main interests, which are really one and the same. But previous before that, just for context, I was a chef. And in my final year of my degree, I took an elective in green finance and like sustainable investing. And I was just like, I hated business. I hated capitalism. I did this sustainability degree thinking I was going to have a career in, the nonprofit sector, working in policy or something of that nature. But then I took this elective and it just like cracked me open. And I went to a conference around sustainable investing, like the green transition and all of this kind of stuff. And the host of the conference, who I believe is the director of the business school at Dalhousie, in his opening remarks, he shared how it's the faculty, it's within management is how we make things real in the world. So it doesn't matter if you're starting a nonprofit or a business, you need a system. You have to have a system in place, and how that is managed. That's how we take ideas and actually make them real. That's how we influence change. And in that moment, I was like, I need to do a master's of management. I want to learn more practical skills. I learned a lot by starting a nonprofit with the Psychedelic Society, but I was like, there's so much that needs to be done. We need more co-ops and local businesses and all of these things. And a lot of people have really great ideas, but to get into the nitty gritty of the details and the bylaws and the documentation, that's just something we're not taught. So, I have a lot of my own entrepreneurial endeavors. I'm working on something now, but I also want to be able to bring those skills to the community as well and help people take their ideas and get practical. And I'm one of the weirdos that loves bylaws. Like when we were starting the Psychedelic Society, it's like figuring out the nitty gritty details of like how new members come in and what's the voting policies, and because it all matters. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause it's funny. You go to start stuff and a lot of times you have no idea what all comes along with that idea of I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Wow.
We could take this moment and do your thing.
Hey, does that mean it's break time? Time to check out our sponsors, pay some bills. You're here with us live on the Mushie Moment on paceradio.net, streaming everywhere. And we're here with Justin. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor? If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you looking for non-stop, continuous cannabis and psychedelic programming? If you are, then turn your browsers to 420radio.ca or paceradio.net, where you will find the 420 Pace re-rolled Saturday. Everything gets started at 8 a.m. Eastern Saturday morning.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Canatechs about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Legacy 420 out on your road.
I was like licking my lips and I was like, ooh, butter tarts. I want one.
They're good. They're really, really good. And actually, there is a place just outside of Toronto called Dodo's Bakery. It's close to Peterborough. And they have world famous, worldwide, international winning competition tarts that are the best things I think I have ever eaten in my life. They have a pumpkin pie butter tart that just knock your socks off, just to let you know.
But you got to add your own cannabis in there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you have to infuse it yourself.
You know, I've been smoking weed, as I said earlier, since I was 11 years old. Like, I smoke weed almost every day. But my tolerance has always stayed low, which I guess is like a good thing for my wallet. But when like a friend is passing around like a cannon of a joint, I'm like, just baby puffs. In edibles, I'm like 5 milligrams maximum, you know, like I'm just like, otherwise like I'm flying. Like, and eating a high dose edible is almost like scarier than eating like 4.5 grams of mushrooms. I don't know what it is with my body, but THC, I'm a little baby. I can, yeah. I don't know.
Wow.
Well, like, I mean, that's just saying that your endocannabinoid system is fairly balanced and your body doesn't need much medicinally that way.
Yeah.
So therefore it all goes to high. Like really, 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 really goes to high, obviously, for you. And that's a really amazing thing. I mean, because not very many people can, you know, their bodies allow them to not build a tolerance.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Yeah. Yes and no. I get a little bit too high often, especially when like friends have like really strong weed. Like I have like some homegrown like 8% THC high CBD that I'm used to. And then, it's pretty easy for me to be like, oh, I got 2 hours here of, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a lightweight too.
Yeah.
Sense sarcasm here, yeah.
Very much so. Oh, we have Jack moving behind you. Look, we have a perfect view of Jack.
Chica, quit bugging him. He ate his snack already. Get down and leave him alone.
There's 2 dogs in the background.
Wow, so you came into it just kind of as a casual thing, stepping into psychedelics, and then just kind of saw where there was an opening that was really needed for people that wanted to know more about it, or like what made you go, this is needed here?
Yeah, well, I have one friend, I won't name him, but I have one friend that I grew up with who did a lot of acid, like bought 100 sheet and it was gone over a couple months. And things got real weird for him. You know, he also had like a really difficult past, family issues, etc. But he lives on social assistance now. He didn't get the help he needed. And in the early days of that process, the therapists were a joke, you know, like he couldn't talk about the experiences he was having because they would label him as like, you know, schizophrenic, all these different things. This person, I think, in a different world would be like our spiritual leader. Like the stuff that happens around him is like supernatural, you know? You know, I think if we had a different culture, you know, like shaman energy, for lack of a better word, but wasn't supported. This would have been years before I even went down to New York and realized all the psychedelic research was happening, right? So there was just no support network. There was no people to turn to and talk about these things, though just being labeled crazy and you need medication. So when I came back from that psychedelic conference in 2016 and 2017, and I saw all this was happening and I knew there were psychedelics popping up around, it was my friend that I was like, we need to do this for people like him. And I know they're out there by the thousands, if not the millions. And it just needed to be there. And my younger self needed this. When I was 22 and I lost myself on mushrooms, I needed somewhere that I could go. And I also want to give a shout out to the Tea Hive Harm Reduction Collective. It's a nonprofit based in Nova Scotia that travels around to music festivals. And it's kind of like the Zendo project. And I volunteered with them at a few music festivals, and I saw the magic that can happen when somebody is freaking the fuck out and looping on, like, somebody took like 8 hits of acid and they're like done. You could like strap them down in an ambulance and like give them sedatives, or you can hand them a cup of tea and hold space for 6 hours while they like scream about their mother dying, and that compassion and that support to let somebody go through what they're going through, whether they're actively in it or they need the integration, it's game changing. And so
what is that called again?
The Tea Hive Harm Reduction Collective. And one of their volunteer coordinator, Coco, was also one of the founding board members of the Nova Scotia Psychedelic Society. So we brought her in to the fold, and she was one of the pioneers with us in actually getting things started. And 2 years before Dosed, actually, Coco and I, she's a chef as well, and her and I hosted a dinner, a fundraiser for MAPS. Half the money went to MAPS, half the money went to the Tea Hive. And I think that was 2017 we did. So, but yeah, it was really to know that there's people out there that are having life-changing experiences with psychedelics. But sometimes life-changing is not a good thing in the short term. It can be the most ungrounding, unsettling experience ever. And if you grew up in a world where drugs are bad, drugs are wrong, like, there's no safety to, process that. And then you go isolated, and then you can actually get worse. I've seen in the early days, and now you can Google psychedelics, there's Netflix documentaries. Like, I think it might be different. There's enough kind of out there that I hope people don't kind of just get lost in it. But yeah, back in the like early 2000s, 2010s, like, I saw a lot of people dip their toes into the psychedelics, and it just was not good. It was negative. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is like, I mean, like, it's in part holding back and blocking off. It's in part wrong use of the psychedelic setting, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many little things that can go wrong. And, so that's why people need to be careful and need to get educated and need to trust those that are educated. Trust those that have been working in the business for a while. I mean, I know a great trip setter out in Vancouver. Like, it's, yeah, you've got to trust the people, and then you've got to work with your integration afterwards. And I think integration is the key to helping people that have had challenging journeys find their way through them and find ground again.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all about community. Like you were saying, if your friend that you were speaking of earlier had that community where he could talk and he could, realize he wasn't alone. He's not the only one feeling this and doing that. Like, he would have felt more connected instead of so alone.
Yeah.
And my heart goes out to that person. I don't know who they are, but my heart goes out to that person because, when I first did iboga and I came home, I understand. I mean, like, here I go and I see iboga through this movie, and I run off to the other side of the country and take this wonderful medicine from this complete stranger that I saw in the movies, and then he runs me up to the mountains of BC, and we do 5-MeO, and and it was incredible, and I'm very, very thankful for that. But it was just like the whole thought process is really freaky. And then when I got home, I was the only person I knew here in Nova Scotia. Like nobody else I knew here personally had done anything even close to what I had just run off and done. Mm-hmm. And that was, I think that's where I get the empathy for your friend, because I came home and felt alone. Mm-hmm. It was quite difficult. I mean, now it's a little bit different. I've built a relationship with, people that I know in the psychedelic world, across the country and across the continent. Actually, I know people as far down as Mexico, with a retreat down there, and a number of people in the States. So I have people that I can lean out on yet. But I think back to that first Cindy that took Iboga and 5-MeO and then came home to, now what the fuck do I do? And I knew nothing of integration at that point. So I really do feel for your friend, and I empathize for him. I'm really thankful I found my way out, and I refound the Nova Scotia Psychedelic Society, because in the last couple of months it's been pretty glorious what you guys have built, to be honest. I've noticed in the last 2 meetings, right?
Yeah, it seems that the new energy on the board really taking it off, and we had a big inflection point as 4 of us were stepping off the board. We had a hot moment there where we asked, are we going to continue? We put the call out for new board members, and it's kind of like a job application. You put an end date on when you're going to stop accepting, and almost everybody submitted within the 2 days before the deadline, which is classic. But leading up to that, we didn't get any applications for people to join the board, right? And we were like, oh, what are we going to do? Is this still needed? And the overall belief was yes, but it takes a lot of energy to do that kind of work. And just if any of the new people are listening, and the people that are still in it, TR, it's hard to do that kind of unpaid labor. So one of these days soon, I know Nova Scotia Psychedelic Society is going to be launching a fundraising campaign. So please, if you live in Nova Scotia and want to support, I know from what I understand, looking at a membership-based model, just that way we can have recurring revenue as little as $5 a month. Recurring revenue is just way nicer than one-off donations. Give us $5 a month rather than $100 once is always what I used to say, because then we can allow us to start predicting and doing more. Yeah.
Plan within the budget that way.
Yeah. Well, I noticed I went in December, and the model that was used then was a large circle, and people were telling stories of their journeys. And it was very beautiful, and it was very loving, and everybody held each other in a very loving, compassionate, and empathetic way. So it was quite beautiful to see what has become of the Nova Scotia Psychedelic Society. And you must be very proud of what has been built and the work that they are continuing to pick up and do.
Yeah. Well, and one really powerful moment, and I know we talked about this, Cindy, when we first met, of the fear that we had when we were getting this started versus the fearlessness in the team now. So TR told me that during one of the interviews he conducted with one of the new board members, who is, I think, the youngest on our team. I don't remember the exact words, but basically asked her if you're afraid of anything. And she's just like, what do you mean? She's just the question wasn't registering. And because when TR and I started this, we were terrified. Right? We started informally in 2017. Cannabis was still illegal, right? I grew up in the Harper era of mandatory minimum drug sentences. I had friends go to jail for cannabis. So to put ourselves out there was we were putting a big cross on our back of, when I think of people, oh my God, Mark Emery, people that really put themselves out there and then face, legal troubles. It takes a lot. But now the generation is like, what do you mean afraid? Like they don't have that in their nervous system that, you know, like weed's legal. Like there's psychedelic research happening everywhere. If anybody were to get arrested for mushrooms, that court case would probably be drawn out painfully. But like, are you really going to actually get convicted? Probably not. You know, like we're in a very different time. And I think that fearlessness is going to allow so much more.
Yep. I think that's the generation that's going to help. And I use this phrase loosely because we know the war on drugs isn't working, but they are going to be the people that help end that stigma.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those people that aren't afraid anymore, because now they're going to stand up and say, but like it's a medicine. So go ahead and arrest me and I'll fight you and I'll win. Because now there's, like you say, there's research.
Yeah.
And a lot of that generation, their friends are caught up in the opiate end of things. And they can see some of them getting the help through this avenue of medicine. There's you know, there's a pocket where they drop the median age for men in Canada because of how many people had died from the opioid crisis or the drug crisis. And you know, that generation, when you see that happening all around you, how can you be scared of mushrooms?
Right. Yeah.
You know, my friend just died of a fentanyl overdose. My other friend's down homeless on crack. And you're going to, what? Mushrooms? Pfft.
Yeah.
I get it, but I have the fear. I'm older and I've had that program of fear as well. I'm looking to those.
It's hard to shake that. Yeah, it's hard to shake that, you know, when you're constantly looking over your shoulder. Like I used to sell weed back in the day. And you know, I've had friends get arrested from like undercover operations, right? Like that was a real journey. And so yeah, to just not have that fear, I think is beautiful. And as you said, Cindy, I think they're gonna be able to do something really great with that, and at a pace that we couldn't have.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I truly believe.
Wow. Let's hope.
Yeah. And you know, it's I'll just I don't like to get overly political, but I'm going to go there. It's a little concerning to see some of the narratives around substance use with the conservatives. You know,
I'm not a fan of criminalizing.
No. And I've heard them talk about wanting to close overdose prevention sites. They want to double down on enforcement, you know, and from what I understand, like I don't live in BC. I've actually never been to BC, but the decriminalization, it sounds like resulted in a bit of an issue. Like my two brothers lived in BC and there were people opening up storefronts selling fentanyl.
Jerry did.
They were able to get away with it because they only had the appropriate amount on site. So it was like, you know, I think when I look at what Portugal did decriminalizing drugs, you know, I don't know the history. I don't know what the first few years were like. I'm sure something like that will come with bumps, but I think we need other things in place to do that effectively. That said, the like doubling down on enforcement is not the vibe. I think that's really not how we need to go. And, you know, is that going to be strictly focused on like quote unquote hard drugs, or is that framework also going to broaden back out to plant medicines? I hope not. And
well, that was part of the funny part here. That decriminalization didn't include mushrooms.
Yeah.
Didn't include LSD. It didn't include psychedelics.
No,
it was kind of a weird little decriminalization, and then the money they spent for safe supply, they took away from recovery.
Yeah.
It wasn't that they were spending the amount on recovery as they are on keeping people alive.
You need
You've got to
both.
have
You need that whole
yeah.
package. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it was a weird play that was done. I'm the only thing I can see is they desire the chaos.
Ain't that the truth? I think that's just like, oh man, we live in some chaotic times. The next, like,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why we focus on the 6 degrees of separation around us and help those that are close. If everybody was focused on helping those around them, you know, there'd be a lot less pointing at people way over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why community is so important. Support each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I grew up in Kamloops and, you know, fuck, I can't even remember the first time I did acid, but there was a couple summers where I did a whole lot of it. And there was nothing. There was nothing. You just grab a buddy and you go out and you get high. And whatever was going on, well, it was whoever was getting high with you was the only person you talked to about it.
Yeah.
Anybody else would just think you're fucking crazy. You don't talk about that kind of stuff. There was, yeah, times they definitely have shifted. You know, I go to the conferences here and again, talk to the younger people that are just fearless over it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, wow, it's a beautiful shift. It's nice to see. It gives me faith that humanity's going to find the healing that it so heavily needs.
So there is a festival coming up in June down in Denver, I believe, and it is the second annual and the first kind of festival of its kind. And I'm not sure if you've heard about it, but they are having a magic mushroom festival down there, where it's all about the magic mushrooms, all about the psilocybin. They last year they held their first one. Apparently, it went very, very well. So this year they're redoing it.
Wow, that sounds amazing. It just makes me think about, you know, when we read like Greek mythology and like thinking about the festivals, people coming together and, you know, drinking the kykeon and things like, yes, please. You know, getting people together for those experiences, I think, is really powerful. I think there's work that can be done with solo work or in small groups, but like that's the stuff of my dreams, like group time, the bonding that could happen out of that. Like, that's special.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you see as your future?
My future.
Well, you're taking the business stuff. You've got some ideas.
Yeah. So I'm working on a business right now called Food Web. We are building a platform to make it easier to rent kitchens. So if there's a restaurant that's closed on a Monday and wants to rent out their kitchen to somebody, just like a marketplace, kind of like Airbnb, but for rental kitchens. And we're launching our pilot phase in February. And then, haven't gotten too public about it, but probably come mid-spring, that'll be, you know, coming out into the world, and we'll see where that takes me. But I really want to help community build like real practical infrastructure and start more small businesses, local businesses, cooperatives, because I don't think the government is going to have our back. I think that's going to continue. The trend, it seems, is like cut government spending, which I don't fully disagree with either. I think we need to like learn how to take care of each other again. And it's a big realization that I've had recently where we have to come together more. And, you know, I don't know what it was like in the rest of Canada, but growing up in Nova Scotia, the stores were closed on Sunday. Like, I didn't grow up in a very religious household, but like Sunday, the stores weren't open. And then when I was like 7 or 8, they passed the law that allowed Sunday shopping. It was a big deal, right? And then the economy's open 24/7. I still remember what it's like when everybody had Sunday off except for nurses on rotation or that one pharmacy, right? And that's special, you know? And what church used to do in society, or mosques, synagogues, I think the trend to a society that is less and less spiritual or less religious, whatever terminology you want to use, I don't think that's a good thing. And we've slowly passed the torch of peer support and community advocacy to the government, which then passed that on to the not-for-profit sector, right? And like for hundreds, thousands of years, people took care of themselves, and now government's massive, you know, and we pay way too much money in taxes. So, you know, to where I see myself in the future, I want to help communities like build up the capacity to genuinely take care of themselves and support themselves and create jobs themselves, you know, create supply chains themselves. And I think a part of that will be spirituality at the center. I'm hoping that's something that psychedelics can show people. I know there's a lot of movement towards like religious exemption as a way around the medical shenanigans of psychedelics. And I think, you know, hopefully we see more of that. So I think actually putting spirituality not just as like this thing in our solo lives, right? That was a phase of psychedelics. As a lot of us have these spiritual epiphanies, and then we develop this spiritual practice, but you don't really talk about it, right? And like, I think what I want to see is, whether it's psychedelic or not, I just want to see spirituality and community back at like the center of community, and like maybe tell stores that can't be open on Sundays anymore, you know, would it be so bad to have a day off?
Day off, right?
Off and everybody
Saturdays,
gets to share
Sundays.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's a pretty cool vision. It's a cool thing to strive for.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing that. Wow. Oh,
It is. It's close to that time. I just want to throw it out there that if anybody here in Nova Scotia is interested, this is the website for the Nova Scotia Psychedelic Society. You can hop on there, keep an eye out for what Justin was telling you about. There might be some, some fundraising coming up, looking at a membership drive. So if you want to be part of everything and stay up on what's going on, that is the website.
Yeah, thanks.
And is there any last things you want to say?
I think just take care of each other. We're heading into some weird ass times, and the division is worse than I think it's ever been, at least in our parts of the world. And we need to come together, and we need to stop just like pushing each other away that have opposing views. It's like, oh, you're a conservative, you're canceling you for my life. And it's like, we need to figure out how to hear each other and find nuance and find a path forward where we're actually all gonna get along. But like, also don't get lost in the bigness of it all. Like, it really starts at home, right? And for anybody out there, if you live somewhere that doesn't have an organization like the Nova Scotia Psychedelic Society, you live in a city that doesn't have an organization, reach out. I'd be happy to chat. As I said, I love bylaws. I'm good at systems. So if you do want to take that step to formalizing a group, I think that's what we need. We need to, come together and build that, real world infrastructure and organizations, cooperatives, etc. So let's come together and yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Justin. It's that time again. Thank you for joining us here on the Mushy Moment. With my co-host, Cindy, myself, and our awesome guest, Justin Andrews. We're proud to be coming to you live from paceradio.net, and we'll see you next week for our 100th special episode. It'll be our 100th podcast. Join us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks.
Bye.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20 is so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420 enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.